Hello, thank you so much for your time. Let me ask you some questions about your, experiences. Tell me about yourself briefly.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a second year college student at UCLA, majoring in cognitive science, and yeah,
How fluent were you in Korean when you arrived in the States?
Korean was my first language, so I would say that I was extremely fluent native speaker of Korean when I first came to the States.
Could you read, speak, write, and
Yeah.
everything?
Mhm.
All right. When were you? How old were you at that time?
I was 6 years old, I believe, when I first came to the States.
How was your experience on the first day of school?
It was a pretty difficult experience. We had to take a math placement test, and although I knew how to do math, I wasn't able to read a lot of the instructions or the word problems, and so I ended up crying in front of my whole class, which was quite the first day experience.
Could you describe your classroom teacher and peer support for you as an English learner?
Yeah, I would say as an English learner, automatically you end up feeling a little bit isolated at first, just because there's that language barrier which makes it so difficult, and so it just feels like you need to learn the language in order to be able to connect to your peers and your teachers. Not to say that they were outright like discriminatory or mean, but it seemed like a natural thing that came from the system.
Did your teacher provide some primary language support?
No primary language support. I would say, obviously going to school really helped me learn English very well, but there was no real program to help preserve my Korean or continue using that language.
Did you receive some sort of support to maintain your primary language at home?
I would speak Korean with my family, but again, when you're so little, what seems most important is to just fit in with your peers. So I would say I definitely wanted to learn English more.
Have you attended Korean school?
I have not.
What are your thoughts on attending Korean school for primary language support or experiences?
I think that it is helpful in preserving your language, but obviously that's almost like an extracurricular outside of your regular school time, and so it can take up time, and it's also, there's no program like that within just like the public education system that allows kids to be surrounded by other kids who speak their primary language or have the same appreciation for the culture. And so while I think it is a great resource, I wish that there was something like that that was in the actual school system as well.
Any thoughts about the Korean K-12 school system?
In general,
and dual language immersion program.
I would say, especially as a child, assimilation is seen as really important for immigrant children. And obviously, because all these kids want to fit in, they want to learn English as quickly as possible. But I think it's such a common phenomenon for those children to kind of feel disconnected from their original language or their original culture that they're from. So I think that there could be things incorporated into the program or changed in order to make education and community more accessible for immigrant children.
How's your college life regarding communicating languages?
Yeah, because I moved to the States at such a young age, I was obviously able to assimilate and speak English and doing well in college, but it was only really recently that I feel like I really started to appreciate my Korean heritage, and I feel like I lost sight of that for a while, just because of how much assimilation is emphasized in our society in the United States, and so yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you tell me about yourself?
Yes, I came here from El Salvador at a very young age. And ever since then, I've been helping out my mom and helping out my family however I could.
Okay, how old were you when you came?
I was 5 years old when I came.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me about your experience when you arrived to the United States? Do you remember your experience?
Yes,
In school?
I'm sorry. I remember my first experience being a little bit nervous, and I was worried that I wasn't going to fit in. But eventually, I did make friends were that were native to my home country as well, and I ended up learning English with them. And because of them, it was a lot easier for me to learn English.
Okay, so the next question is, did you receive support to maintain your primary language at home?
Yes, I did. My mom never understood English. She only understood it like a little bit. So she would always just talk to us in Spanish. And then, so whenever I went home, it was all Spanish. And whenever I went to school, it was only English and Spanish. So when I was at home, it was perfect for me to like maintain both languages.
Question is, what are your thoughts on attending Spanish school for primary language experiences?
I think it's a good idea, especially for new people that are coming to the country that don't fully understand our English. So it will be like a perfect idea for someone who has a lot of trouble learning a new language.
Tell me about yourself briefly.
Well, my name is Serenity Zaragoza, and around the age of 8, I migrated from Mexico into the U.S.
How fluent were you in Spanish when you arrived to the United States?
When I came from the United States, I was extremely fluent in Spanish when I came.
Could you describe how was your experience of the first day of school in the United States?
Well, it was definitely interesting because half the time I was nervous for story time, and since I couldn't really speak English as good, half the time the only thing I could ever get out and ask was, "Where's the restroom?"
Okay, could you describe your classroom teacher and peer support for you as an English learner? Did your teachers provide language support? Your primary language, like your Spanish language?
Honestly, no, they didn't. Half the time, everyone was just speaking English, and I found many struggles in trying to learn Spanish in that education.
Okay, so you were in just an English class?
Yeah, I was just in an English class.
Next question. Did you receive support to maintain your primary language at home?
Yes, but at some point, I just stopped talking Spanish altogether and just learned how to speak complete English.
What are your thoughts on attending Spanish school for primary language experiences?
Honestly, if that had happened to me, I wouldn't have lost who I was before I came here, and I'd be able to still speak Spanish.
Okay, any thoughts about your current K-12 school system and dual language support?
I just wish I had been supported so that I could still learn Spanish to this day and still know it. But unfortunately, because I lost all that, I'm not able to communicate to my uncles or my family from Mexico, and it's sad.